Ma'am, you need to step back from the vehicle.
This is my car. I have the keys right here.
We got a report about someone trying to break into cars in this lot.
I work here. I'm a doctor at this hospital. I just finished a 16-hour shift.
Sure you are. Hands where I can see them and don't do any stupid moves.
The parking garage cameras captured everything that happened next. Dr. Amara Okonquo stood beside her silver Mercedes, still wearing her surgical scrubs with her hospital ID clipped to her chest. She had just saved 3 lives during a grueling shift. And now Officer Blake Morrison was treating her like a criminal because someone reported a black woman near expensive cars. This officer had no idea he was confronting one of Maryland's top heart surgeons, someone with both a medical degree and a law degree, someone who knew exactly what her rights were. And in less than 15 minutes, this mistake would end his career and cost the city nearly $500,000. If you've ever been wrongly accused of something, drop a comment and subscribe, because this story gets absolutely wild. Dr. Amara Okonquo was 39 years old, born to Nigerian immigrant parents in Silver Spring, Maryland. Her father was an engineer, her mother a nurse. They taught her that excellence was the only shield against prejudice. Amara excelled at everything, graduated top of her Princeton class, earned her law degree from Georgetown, planning to fight injustice in courtrooms. But during a medical volunteer trip to Lagos, she watched a child die from a treatable heart condition. That moment changed her path forever. She returned to the States and entered Johns Hopkins Medical School at 26. Older than most students, but intensely focused, she chose cardiothoracic surgery, one of medicine's most demanding specialties. Completed her residency at Massachusetts General. By 35, she was performing surgeries other doctors wouldn't attempt. 4 years ago, Baltimore Regional Medical Center recruited her as an attending physician. The position was prestigious, the salary excellent, and she could be close to her aging parents. But Baltimore brought challenges Boston hadn't prepared her for. Patients questioned whether she was really the doctor. Nurses doubted her orders. Security guards stopped her in hallways demanding ID, even when she wore scrubs and a badge. Hospital security had stopped her 11 times in 4 years, every time asking her to prove she belonged there, every time treating her differently than her white colleagues. But police had never stopped her. Not here. Not in the garage where she parked every single day. This Tuesday evening in September, Amara finished a brutal shift, 16 hours straight. She'd performed an emergency bypass on a man who coded in the ER, a valve replacement on a teenager with a heart defect, then another emergency when a patient started hemorrhaging after surgery. 3 lives saved, 16 exhausting hours. Her back ached, her hands hurt. All she wanted was a hot shower and sleep. She walked through the hospital to the attached garage. Nearly midnight. The structure was mostly empty, just scattered vehicles across multiple levels. Her Mercedes was parked on level 3, the section reserved for attending physicians. She'd bought that car 2 years earlier, a Mercedes E-Class in silver, her one luxury after years of student debt and resident poverty. That car represented everything she'd worked for. As Amara approached her vehicle, she noticed a security cart near the level entrance. 2 figures standing beside it, watching her. The dim lighting made it hard to see them clearly. She pulled her keys out, clicked the unlock button. Her car's lights flashed in response. That's when she saw the police cruiser turn onto her level. Officer Blake Morrison was 29 years old, 6 years with Baltimore police. White, average height, forgettable face. He considered himself professional, by the book, a good cop doing his job. What Blake couldn't see was his own bias, how he automatically viewed certain people as suspicious, how he made assumptions based on appearance, how his gut instincts were actually just prejudice in uniform. Blake grew up in a Baltimore suburb, middle-class family, decent schools, no hardships. He joined the force because his uncle was a cop and made it sound exciting. Reality was mostly paperwork and boredom with occasional adrenaline spikes. In 6 years on the force, Blake made 284 stops. 71% involved black people in a city where the black population was 63%. Blake thought his numbers were proportional. He never noticed that his stops of black people were twice as likely to involve searches, 3 times more likely to end in arrests, and almost never found contraband. Blake was working night shift in the hospital district, usually quiet. He drove around, checked businesses, handled occasional noise complaints. Then the call came through. Hospital security reported suspicious activity in the doctor's garage. Black female, late 30s, dark clothing, trying car doors. Blake responded immediately. Possible car thief, a real arrest. He drove into the garage and up to level 3. Saw a black woman in dark clothes approaching a Mercedes, alone. Matched the description perfectly. Blake never questioned the call, never wondered who reported it or why, never considered it might be a mistake. He pulled his cruiser directly behind the Mercedes, blocking it, got out with his hand near his weapon. Step away from that car right now. Amara turned, confused, saw the police car, the approaching officer. Her heart raced. She'd heard the stories, seen the videos, knew how wrong these situations could go. This is my vehicle. I have my keys. She held up her key fob, gestured to the hospital badge on her scrubs. Blake barely looked at the badge. Someone called about suspicious activity. You trying doors out here? I'm a surgeon. I work in this hospital. I just got off a double shift. Blake heard defensiveness and read it as guilt. Right. Keep your hands visible. Amara's thoughts raced. She was a doctor. She had her badge, her keys, every right to be here. But being right didn't always matter. She slowly raised her hands, keys still in them. Officer, you can verify everything. Call hospital security. Check with the surgical department. I was in the operating room 20 minutes ago. Need to see identification. It's in my bag. I'm reaching in slowly to get my wallet. Blake tensed. Do it slow. Amara moved with exaggerated care, reached into her purse, pulled out her wallet, handed Blake her driver's license. Blake examined it. Amara Okonquo. Address in Roland Park, a nice Baltimore neighborhood, where a doctor might live. But Blake had committed to this stop. He'd already treated her like a suspect. Backing down meant admitting a mistake. This vehicle registered to you? Yes. Run the plates if you want. Blake returned to his cruiser, ran her license and the plates. Everything came back clean. Car registered to Amara Okonquo at the Roland Park address. No warrants, no stolen vehicle reports, nothing. A security guard appeared around the corner, saw the scene, approached. Officer, problem here? Blake turned. You called about someone breaking into cars? The guard looked confused. No, sir. I didn't call anyone. Dispatch said hospital security reported suspicious activity. The guard used his radio briefly, then turned back. Nobody on our team made that call. And I know Dr. Okonquo. She works here. That's her assigned spot. Blake felt control slipping, but he'd already detained her. He needed something to justify it. He walked back to Amara. Ma'am, need your consent to search the vehicle. Amara felt anger rising but kept her voice steady. On what grounds? Verify there's no stolen property. You ran my plates. You know this is my car. Security confirms I work here. What legal basis do you have for requesting a search? Blake's jaw tightened. Conducting an investigation. Investigation of what? Nobody from hospital security called about me. There's no evidence of any crime. You have my license, registration, hospital ID. What exactly are you investigating? Have you ever had to explain your own rights to someone who should be protecting them? Comment below. Blake was trapped. He'd made assumptions, acted on them. Now he faced someone who knew her rights and wouldn't back down. Ma'am, if you don't consent to search, I'll detain you while I get a warrant. Amara almost laughed. A warrant? For what crime? What probable cause do you have? I'd genuinely like to hear this. Blake made his fatal mistake. Instead of admitting error and ending this, he escalated. Turn around, hands on the vehicle. Excuse me? You're being detained for investigation. Amara's hands shook, but from rage, not fear. Officer, understand what you're doing. I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon. I've done nothing wrong. I'm standing beside my own car in my assigned spot at the hospital where I work. You're detaining me. Why? Investigation purposes. That's not a legal reason. You need reasonable suspicion of a crime. What crime? Blake pulled out handcuffs. Turn around. The security guard stepped closer. Officer Morrison, this really isn't necessary. I can vouch for Dr. Okonquo. Blake ignored him. Ma'am, final warning. Amara pulled out her phone and started recording. I am Dr. Amara Okonquo. It's 11:52 p.m., September 17th. I'm being detained by Officer Blake Morrison, badge number 4738, in Baltimore Regional Medical Center parking garage. I've committed no crime. I've shown identification, vehicle registration, and hospital credentials. I'm recording this for my protection. Blake lunged forward and grabbed her phone. You can't record me. Actually, she can, the security guard said. Maryland's a one-party consent state. She has every right to record. Blake was furious now. Everything had spiraled beyond his control. He had her phone. Amara demanded it back. The guard watched, and Blake knew, somewhere deep down, he'd made a catastrophic mistake. But he was committed. He grabbed Amara's arm, pulled it behind her back. The handcuff clicked around her wrist. The guard radioed immediately. Code 10, Level 3 parking. Officer detaining Dr. Okonquo. Needs supervisor immediately. Amara didn't resist physically, but her voice carried across the garage. I am not resisting. I'm complying under protest. This is unlawful detention. I'm a doctor. I work here. I've done nothing wrong. Another voice echoed through the space. What the hell is happening? A woman in a white coat walked quickly toward them. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, chief of surgery. She'd been working late and heard the commotion on the security channel. Blake, Dr. Okonquo is one of my surgeons. What are you doing? Blake had one handcuff on Amara's wrist. Dr. Mitchell stared at him with shock and fury. The guard documented everything. Blake realized he'd just handcuffed one of the hospital's top surgeons in her own parking garage. He released the handcuff. Amara pulled away, rubbing her wrist. She looked at Dr. Mitchell. I want everything documented. All of it. Dr. Mitchell turned to the guard. Get footage from every camera on this level. Call hospital administration now. Blake tried explaining. We received a report about someone breaking into cars. From who? Dr. Mitchell demanded. Because it wasn't our security team. And even if someone called, you have her ID. Security confirmation. Me standing here telling you she's a surgeon. What justification do you have for handcuffing her? Blake had no answer. Give her phone back, Dr. Mitchell ordered. Blake returned the phone. Amara checked it was still recording. It was. I want your badge number, Dr. Mitchell continued. Your supervisor's information, and a formal complaint filed before you leave this property. Blake provided everything. Face red, hands shaking. He knew he was in serious trouble. A sergeant arrived 10 minutes later. By then, Dr. Mitchell had called the hospital legal department. The security director had arrived. Amara had sent the video to her email, cloud storage, and 3 colleagues. The sergeant listened to everyone's statements, watched Amara's video, reviewed security footage, then pulled Blake aside for a conversation that ended with Blake returning to his vehicle and leaving. Amara stood there in her scrubs, exhausted from 16 hours of surgery, now shaking from adrenaline and anger. Dr. Mitchell touched her shoulder. I'm so sorry. This should never have happened. Amara nodded, but it did. And it's not the first time. What do you mean? Security stopped me 11 times in 4 years, always demanding my badge, always questioning if I really work here. This is just the first time it was actual police. Dr. Mitchell's expression hardened. That's changing. I promise you. Amara went home that night unable to sleep. She sat at her kitchen table watching the video repeatedly, Blake's voice ordering her away from her own car. The moment he grabbed her phone, her own voice, steady and clear, documenting everything. By morning, she'd made 3 decisions. File a formal complaint with the police department, contact a civil rights attorney, ensure this never happened to another doctor at that hospital. The complaint was filed within 48 hours. Hospital legal supported it with detailed statements and all security footage. Dr. Mitchell personally wrote a letter describing what she witnessed. The story broke in the Baltimore Sun 3 days later. Top surgeon handcuffed in hospital garage. Amara's video was included online. It went viral. Response was immediate. Doctors nationwide shared their own racial profiling stories. A hashtag trended Doctors While Black. The hospital received hundreds of emails and calls. Baltimore police had no choice but to act quickly. Internal Affairs opened an investigation within a week. They interviewed Blake for 8 hours across 3 sessions. The interviews were damning. Why did you approach Dr. Okonquo? Received a call about suspicious activity. From whom? Dispatcher said hospital security. Did you verify with hospital security before detaining her? No. Why not? Didn't think it was necessary. Did Dr. Okonquo provide identification? Yes. Did it match vehicle registration? Yes. Did security confirm she worked there? Yes. Did the chief of surgery confirm she worked there? Yes. At what point did you have legal justification to handcuff her? Blake couldn't answer because there was no point. He detained and handcuffed a woman who committed no crime, provided every form of identification, and had multiple witnesses vouch for her. Investigators pulled Blake's history. 6 years on the force, 284 stops, 201 involved Black individuals. Of those, 89 resulted in searches. Only 7 searches found any contraband. Blake's pattern was clear: disproportionate stops of Black people, excessive searches, rarely finding evidence of actual crimes. 18 formal complaints filed against Blake over 6 years. 13 alleged racial profiling. All 13 marked unsubstantiated. Nobody had examined the pattern until now. Investigation took 3 weeks. Findings released in a public statement. Officer Blake Morrison conducted unlawful detention of Dr. Amara Okonquo without reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. Officer Morrison failed to verify the initial call before approaching Dr. Okonquo. Officer Morrison ignored multiple forms of identification and witness verification. Officer Morrison unlawfully seized Dr. Okonquo's phone while she legally recorded the encounter. Officer Morrison unlawfully handcuffed Dr. Okonquo without probable cause. Officer Morrison demonstrated a pattern of racially biased policing throughout his career. Recommendation: immediate termination and referral to state attorney's office for possible criminal charges related to civil rights deprivation under color of law. Police commissioner accepted the recommendation. Blake Morrison was fired on October 9th, 23 days after handcuffing a surgeon in her own parking garage. Amara hired Jennifer Rothstein, one of Maryland's top civil rights attorneys. Jennifer reviewed everything and filed a federal lawsuit under Section 1983. The complaint listed multiple violations: Fourth Amendment violation for unlawful detention and seizure, First Amendment violation for illegally seizing her phone while recording, 14th Amendment violation for racial discrimination, battery for physical contact during handcuffing, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Against the city, failure to train and supervise officers regarding racial bias. City attorneys watched Amara's video, read security reports, reviewed Blake's history, calculated potential jury verdict, prominent surgeon, video evidence, clear racial profiling, pattern of ignored complaints. Settlement offer came in 6 weeks, $465,000. But Amara wanted more than money. She wanted change. Final settlement, $485,000 plus mandatory reforms. All officers complete 100 hours bias training with annual refreshers. Implementation of early warning system to flag officers with problematic patterns. Monthly public reporting of stop data by race, neighborhood, outcome. Creation of independent civilian oversight board with disciplinary authority. Body cameras required for all officers with automatic footage upload to secure servers. Policy prohibiting officers from seizing phones or cameras during lawful recording. Amara negotiated something unique: a seat on the Civilian Oversight Board. The city agreed. For the next year, Amara served on that board while continuing her surgical practice. She reviewed officer conduct, examined stop data, pushed for accountability, made sure Blake's case wasn't isolated, but started systematic change. Baltimore Regional Medical Center implemented its own changes. Dr. Mitchell ordered a complete security protocol review. They found Black doctors and staff were stopped and questioned at 5 times the rate of white colleagues. New policies created. All staff badges include photos and department names clearly visible. Security undergoes mandatory quarterly bias training. Any security stop of credentialed staff documented and reviewed. Creation of confidential bias incident reporting system. Annual climate surveys tracking experiences of doctors and staff of color. Dr. Mitchell created a diversity and inclusion task force with Amara as co-chair. The task force addressed security issues and examined hiring, promotion, patient care, institutional culture. Changes weren't cosmetic. 3 security guards fired for discriminatory stop patterns. Hospital hired chief diversity officer. Recruitment efforts for surgeons of color intensified. Mentorship programs created. Amara's case became a turning point nationally, not just for her hospital. Medical associations started tracking racial profiling of doctors. The American College of Surgeons created guidelines for hospitals on preventing bias in credentialing and security. Amara was invited to speak at conferences, testified before Maryland legislature about racial profiling, wrote an op-ed for the Journal of the American Medical Association titled "The Diagnosis They Don't Teach in Medical School: Racism." The story resonated because it shattered assumptions. If a cardiothoracic surgeon with every imaginable credential could be handcuffed in her own parking garage, then no amount of education or achievement protects you from racism. But the story also showed the power of documentation, advocacy, and refusing to accept injustice. Blake Morrison left Baltimore after termination, moved to a small Pennsylvania town, got a private security job. He told people he was fired for political correctness run amok. Claimed he was a victim of anti-police bias. He never acknowledged racially profiling Amara, never admitted his actions were wrong, never apologized. He tried getting hired by other police departments in Pennsylvania. None would hire him. His termination for civil rights violations made him unemployable in law enforcement. He works security at a shopping mall now. Still bitter, still convinced he did nothing wrong, Amara continued her surgical practice and became more prominent than ever. Promoted to Associate Chief of Cardiothoracic Surgery, published groundbreaking research on reducing racial disparities in cardiac care, trained a new generation of surgeons with special attention to mentoring students of color. 3 years after the incident, Johns Hopkins offered her Professor of Surgery and Director of their Cardiac Surgery Diversity Initiative. She accepted. But she never forgot that parking garage night, kept the video on her phone, showed it to medical students during talks about implicit bias in healthcare, used it as evidence that expertise and credentials aren't protection against prejudice. When younger doctors of color came to her with their own profiling stories, she listened, advised them, helped them document incidents and file complaints, reminded them staying silent was easier but speaking up was necessary. She turned trauma into a teaching tool and anger into action. This story matters because it destroys the myth that achievement makes you immune to racism. Amara Okonquo had every credential society claims to value: medical degree from Johns Hopkins, law degree from Georgetown, top surgeon, lives saved, respect earned. She was still handcuffed in her own parking garage for being black while successful. Blake Morrison saw a black woman with a nice car and assumed she didn't belong, assumed she must be doing something wrong, assumed his gut instinct was more reliable than her documentation, badge, keys, and multiple people vouching for her. He was wrong. That wrongness cost him his career and the city nearly $500,000. But more importantly, it cost him the chance to be a good officer. A good officer would have verified the call, recognized the hospital badge, listened when security confirmed she worked there, backed down when he realized his mistake. Blake chose escalation over de-escalation, ego over evidence, bias over facts. Amara chose to fight back, document everything, demand accountability, turn her experience into systematic change. 3 years later, Baltimore police stops of black residents decreased by 23%, racial profiling complaints down 31%. Officers know their stop data is tracked and reviewed. At Baltimore Regional Medical Center, security stops of black staff dropped by 68%. Not one black doctor or nurse has been questioned in a parking garage since Amara's case. That's the power of one person refusing to accept injustice. One video, one lawsuit, one demand for change. Amara still saves lives in the operating room, still fights bias in her institutions. That video's still on her phone, a reminder that documentation matters, standing up matters. One person's courage can change entire systems. Thanks for watching all the way through. If this story changed how you think about racial profiling and credibility, hit that subscribe button. I cover more stories exposing injustice and celebrating people who fight it. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever had your credentials or expertise questioned because of your race? I want to hear your stories. See you in the next one.